What is up, guys? Miles Schroeder here, and today I'm going to be teaching you all how to construct, prime, and paint your very own Warhammer Space Marine. And Warhammer 40k is a tabletop war miniature game where players will buy and construct their very own factions. Now, for the construction process, we're going to need pliers, X-Acto knife, and plastic glue. And preferred as well, recommended, a cutting board. So now that we have the materials out of the box and our tools ready, we can begin to use the guide to begin the construction process. So, let's get to it.
So here we start the actual construction. First off, you're going to start with getting the legs together. Once you get the legs glued together, both left and right, you'll start moving on to the chest piece. Now there are different variations of chest pieces in every box that you get, so the variation is yours to choose from. After we glue together the two sides of the chest, we move on and glue it into the legs, and then put it onto a base. Afterwards, you glue on arms with weapons attached, and then you move on to a helmet, and then finally you move on to the backpack. At the end, you can add on any extra knickknacks, such as knives and feathers and such.
So now the next step we're going to is the priming process. Now the primer acts as a sealant so that the paint can better stick to it. So we're gonna need some tools. First, of course, black primer for the plastic models, some gloves to protect your skin from the primer, respirator to wear so you don't inhale the fumes, and this priming box that I've constructed myself here. So, let's get to it.
When you're priming, you want to make sure that your hand is far enough away so you don't get any excess primer on yourself, but yet you still fill in every space of your model.
So now this is the last step we have, which is painting, which is arguably the most fun that I have. First, we're going to need some different paints, paint washes and paint shades, paint gloves, paper towels and tissues to dry off our brush, water cup, paint palette, and various paint brushes. So, let's get to it.
So beginning the painting process, we want to start with a base coat color. This base coat color right now we're using is Mechanicus Standard Gray. This acts similar to the primer, but instead of allowing more paint to stick to it, it's going to be the mainstay color of the model itself, what other paints are going to be built off of. After we use the Mechanicus Gray, we go in with some Abaddon Black to detail the shoulder pads, the backpacks, the helmet, and parts of the knee gears as well. After we go in with the black, we use a smaller brush for fine details with another color called Plate Mail Metal. Using this metal, we add details to the sword, the gun, as well as the boots and the chest piece. After using those pieces, we design with the weapon bronze. Now this bronze color we use for the backpack on the ornament of the backpack, and as well as the hilt of the sword. Using this color brings out a lot of detail, and it contrasts nicely with the silver and the black already on the model. Next, we move in with Feywild Glow, which is used on a little ankle for a parchment. And then after that, we move in with Wormling Red. And now this Wormling Red I used for two instances, one of which was the eyes of the actual model itself. And then I mixed it with some of that Abaddon Black color to give it a much darker tone, and I splattered a little bit of it to add that extra detail to the sword. Doing this creates a more deeper sense of environment to your character in what you're painting, and it gives a sense of story to it and brings out extra elements. Afterwards, we go with Corix White to paint the skull as well as the necklace on the model.
So for the final parts here, we're going to be adding a shade or a wash over the entire thing. This is Agrex Earth Shade. So this is going to darken the recesses of the model itself, give it more of a darker tone to it, and bring more detail out of it.
Painting with a wash is a lot different than actual paint because it's a lot looser and it's a lot more liquidy, so this seeps into the crevices and shades the entire model.
So now, the last and final step to the painting process is going to be the dry brush technique. The specially designed paint brush allows so that we can add the ridges to give a more defined detail to the entire model. So, let's get to it.
In order to dry brush, you want to dip the end of your paintbrush into the paint and get as much of it off as possible with a paper towel, and with that brush, lightly dust over the model, accentuating the highlights and the edges. Now the final paint we use is called technical paint, and this is going to be Armageddon dust. It makes it look like that the person is standing on top of grass, and afterwards we add in little grass tufts.
So now that I've given you guys these steps on how to create your own Space Marine, maybe in the future, whenever you go shopping or you go into the mall, you might decide to pick up your own and just build it for the fun of it, or develop the hobby for yourself.